Before anything else, hit like right now because it helps this video reach far more Manchester City supporters. Subscribe if you're not subscribed yet, and turn notifications on so you don't miss any important updates, because what's happening behind the scenes at City right now could completely change the direction of the season. There's a real sense of total urgency at Manchester City. That's not an exaggeration. The last few hours have been some of the most hectic of the January window for the club. Decisions that would normally take weeks are being discussed in a matter of days, and everything revolves around one very clear point. The defense has become a genuine, concrete, and immediate concern. Injuries have arrived one after another. They've taken key pieces out of the team, and they've forced Pep Guardiola and the board to move earlier than planned. The situation started to shift decisively when it became clear that Ruben Dias wouldn't be able to return as soon as people first thought. A forecast of 4 to 6 weeks out would already be a heavy blow on its own, but things escalated even further with the news involving Joško Gvardiol. The possibility of surgery and an absence that could stretch to 4 or 5 months set off the highest possible alarm inside the club. Suddenly, what looked like a short-term problem turned into a structural risk for the rest of the season. Because of that, names that used to sit quietly in internal reports moved straight to the center of discussions. And among those names, one has gathered momentum like never before. Marc Guehi. The Crystal Palace center-back hasn't appeared out of nowhere on City's radar. He's been watched for years, analyzed in different contexts, assessed not only for technical output, but for mentality and profile. What has changed now is the context. Need has accelerated everything. On Crystal Palace's side, there has also been a clear shift in posture. For a long time, the message was resistance. Guehi was treated as untouchable, captain, leader, central piece of the project. But football rarely allows that kind of rigidity when contract factors come into play. With his deal moving into its final months, Palace face a delicate decision. Keep the player to the end and risk losing him without a financial return, or accept that this could be the right moment to negotiate. That is exactly why Oliver Glasner's comments carried so much weight. Without any fluff, he made it clear there is a limit, not an emotional or sporting limit, but a financial one. If a truly big offer arrives and the player himself shows a desire to move, the club will not block an exit purely out of pride. It's a pragmatic stance, almost unavoidable in modern football, especially when the interested party is a club the size of Manchester City. Inside City, there is a sense that this public openness from Palace is not a coincidence. It has surfaced at the same moment the market can see the defensive fragility in Guardiola's squad. At the same time, there is caution. The asking price will not be low. Palace know they have a valuable asset, and they do not want a repeat of previous discussions, like those that revolved around figures close to 35 million last summer. Now, with less time left on the contract but greater pressure on the other side, the negotiation takes on more complicated contours. Guardiola, for his part, is trying to balance messaging and necessity. Publicly, he avoids sounding desperate. He talks about internal solutions, trust in young players, adaptation. But behind the scenes, the work is intense. The early return of Max Alleyne from his loan spell shows that. It's not only a bet on the future, it's an immediate response to a current problem. At the same time, relying exclusively on youngsters at a decisive stage of the season is a risk City know they cannot carry for long. Guehi looks like a ready-made solution. He knows the Premier League. He has maturity, leadership, and a style that appeals to the coaching staff. He isn't a defender who needs months to settle in. If an agreement moves forward, the expectation is for near-immediate impact. Even so, City are doing the maths. They are assessing not only the transfer fee, but what it does to their summer planning, when other positions will also need reinforcement. Meanwhile, the atmosphere inside the squad reflects this period of forced adjustments. Back-to-back matches, few rest days, long travel, and a bench that keeps getting shorter. All of that has started to take its toll, draws that slip away late, intensity that drops in the final minutes, and the feeling that any mistake now counts double, especially with a direct rival like Arsenal maintaining consistency. That combination of factors explains why January, which initially looked like a calm window for Manchester City, has turned into a decisive period. This is not about signing for the sake of it, but protecting the season. Every decision now carries direct impact on the title race, on parallel competitions, and even on how physically the squad reaches the final months. And that takes us to another important point being discussed inside the club at the same time, involving not only arrivals, but strategic movement around young players who are part of City's future. This other point is nowhere near improvisation. While the board rushes to put out the immediate fire in the first team's defense, there is parallel work happening, quiet but just as important, deciding what to do with young defenders who belong to the club and who could gain minutes away from the Etihad without compromising the present or the future. In that context, the name Djouma Ba starts to appear with far more force. City know they cannot repeat past mistakes, when promising talents were stuck in bloated squads, training well but playing very little. In defense, that risk is even greater. It's a position that demands reading of the game, timing, confidence, and real match experience. Training helps, but it does not replace minutes under pressure. That is why every possible loan is evaluated almost like a permanent transfer, given the responsibility involved. Internally, Djouma Ba is seen as a high-ceiling project. Despite a recent loan in France that had uneven moments, the club have not lost belief in his potential. Quite the opposite. The view is that experience served as learning, not a label. He gained baggage, understood the European rhythm better, and returned with clear areas to develop. Over the past months, his name has circulated more frequently among Premier League clubs. Some have only sounded it out. Others have shown more concrete interest. Among them, Brentford have stood out, not only because of the interest itself, but because of the club profile. City see Brentford as an environment suited to real development, organized structure, constant demands, and most importantly, opportunities for those who perform. The open talks between the clubs do not mean the deal is done. Far from it. City have made it clear from the start that they will only move forward if there are genuine guarantees of minutes. A loan that looks good on paper is pointless if the player ends up spending weeks on the bench. For City, that would mean losing precious development time. From Brentford's side, the interest is genuine. The team want to strengthen defensively for the second half of the season. They know they need physicality, pace, and depth. A loan without an obligation to buy allows them to test the player without damaging the budget. For them, it's an opportunity. For City, it could be a strategic move with strong long-term return. This movement shows how the club are trying to balance two fronts at once, solving the current crisis and preparing the future. Meanwhile, Guardiola keeps dealing with a calendar that shows no mercy. The run of intense matches, combined with travel and absences, has been demanding a visible price on the pitch. The recent draw, decided in the final minutes, was not treated as a simple slip. Internally, there was a deep review, not only of the result, but of the context. The fatigue was obvious. With limited options on the bench, the team ran out of fuel at the end. There was no room to refresh intensity, change the tempo, or protect the scoreline like in other seasons. Pep was direct when asked about the challenge of working with so many missing players. He didn't romanticize it. He made it clear he would rather not face that kind of scenario, but accepted it is part of the reality of a long, heavy season. The difference, according to him, is how the group responds. And on that point, the manager made a point of praising the players' attitude. The internal assessment is that the squad spirit remains strong. Even with difficulties, the team stay competitive on all fronts. That doesn't remove concern, but it prevents panic. Still, nobody at the club ignores the table reality. Arsenal are keeping a high pace, and every point dropped now weighs far more than it did early in the season. That is why the January market has stopped being merely an opportunity and has become a tool for competitive survival. If the Marc Guehi negotiation advances, it will be a direct consequence of this context. It is not a gamble. It is a response. City know they cannot wait until summer while relying only on makeshift solutions and youngsters without enough experience. At the same time, decisions like the possible loan for Juma Ba show the club are not acting in desperation. There is method. There are criteria. Even under pressure, City try to keep the coherence they have built over the years. Reinforce when they must, develop when they can, and protect the long-term project. All of this is happening while the season continues at full speed, with no pauses and no margin for prolonged errors. Each week brings new tests, new variables, and new decisions that can define the team's fate through to May. If you want to keep getting this kind of content, with complete analysis, real context, and everything happening behind the scenes at Manchester City, hit like now and subscribe to the channel. That helps a lot to keep the content reaching you first, every time.